Islam and scientific tradition. Last week, Prof. Explained in detail the supporting factors that encourage Islamic scientific tradition, such as religious encouragement, appreciation of the community, royal and governmental patronage, and few other things. So Alhamdulillah. So without further ado, we invite our dear Prof to continue with the class, Prof.
Yeah. Thank you very much to all brothers and sisters, all participants this online class of IIIT. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Okay, inshallah, today we will talk about the other important topics, which is educational institution. And I think this is the fourth factors supporting the science development in Islam. And this institution actually, there are two kinds, which is formal institution and non-formal or informal institution. The belong to the first one is actually called Madrasah. Okay. And then belong to the second category is the we have here we call academy, and then we have also library. We also have observatory and so on. So I'll talk about that. Now we concentrate on the madrasah. Madrasah here means not madrasah as we understood in the Malay world, right? This is actually college or universities, This is important. I mean, madrasah is important for the development of religious sciences. Ulumuddin. And it actually concentrates on the religious sciences, or we call al-ulum al-naqliyah, because it's built based on the endowment institution or waqaf. So waqaf is actually a religious kind of institution. So madrasa was built for the development of religious science mostly. And it focuses on what Tabi have said as the two fundamentals, or this is two usuls. The first called usuluddin, and the second one called usul fiqh. So this is two major disciplines that was developed in madrasa. But of course, other sciences also, language, theology, and so on. And here we will talk only about two madrasah, which is the most famous one. The first one is called Nizamiya Madrasah Nizamiya, or Nizamiya universities, built by Nizamul Mulk, is the Prime Minister of Malik Shah from Seljuk dynasty. Okay, madrasa previously was developed from a mosque, actually. So this is a kind of extracurricular in the mosque activity. That's why in the beginning it is called the Masjid Khan. So it's affiliated, attached to mosque, but later on it's developed into independent institution that focus on religious sciences. And wonderfully, that madrasa has produced great scholars like Imam Ghazali, Fakhruddin Razi, and so on. So it is important for us now to discuss about this educational institution, because although we can claim that our educational system now developed a very advanced technique or method of teaching, but the fact is that our schools did not produce so much great scholars like the Madrasah did. Okay, so you wonder what kind of institution and educational system that they had. So we can, like we can learn from them how to produce such a great figures. Madrasah Nizamia was built by Nizamul Mulk and 18 to 1092. I think this is his lifetime, as a system, meaning that Madrasah Nizamia was not built just in one place. There's a Madrasah Nizamia in Tus or Mashhad, which is the city of Imam Ghazali, where Imam Ghazali first entered to this, and also in the Shiraz, from where Mullah Sodra derived, and also Nisabur, wherein Imam Ghazali met his teacher, Juwaini. Okay, and of course the biggest one is in Baghdad itself, Nizamia, Madrasah Nizamia in Baghdad, wherein Al-Ghazali once became the director, the head of the school. Okay, the Nizamia college or university is built for the propagation of Sunnism against Shiism in the time. Because in the time, Shiism from the Fatimid dynasty has built Al-Azhar, and they propagate Shiism as ideology. So Nizamul Mulk was like challenged to build another madrasa to deal with this. And so Madrasah Nizamiyah propagates Sunnism, and especially Shafi'ism and fiqh. So to counterbalance the influence of Shiism in that time. And of course, we know that Al-Ghazali became involved in this, okay, and finally became director of Nizamiyah Madrasa in Baghdad. And Madrasa Nizamiyah was designed for developing religious science and also literature. So this is two great disciplines that was developed in there. And as you can see, you know that Al-Ghazali has produced so many books. It is about 480 books that he written in this Madrasa Nizamiyah. And of course, this madrasa has contributed great deal to the development of science and religion or religious sciences. Hello? Hello? Sorry.
Okay, Prof, continue. Yeah.
Yeah. So the second one is the second madrasa was called the Madrasah of Mustansir, Mustansiria Madrasah. Mustansiria Madrasah was built by Caliph Mustansir, which is the second last of the Abbasid Caliph, whose son was slaughtered by Hulagu Khan in 1258. So it is the second last. But the madrasa still survive until now. Okay. So it was built in 13th century, 2 centuries after the Nizamiya Madrasa. The purpose was to replace the and revitalize the role played by Nizamiya. So it's replacing the Nizamiya. This is already 2 centuries old. So to revive the study of religious sciences. Okay, and the madrasa was the most excellent, or more excellent than the previous one, in which, it taught not only one mazhab in fiqh, but 4. Okay, if Nizamiya concentrate on Shafi'i mazhab, Madrasah Mustanshiriya taught 4 mazahib, each of which was headed by a professor with 75 students. Okay, so it's more developed actually. It had a library with a rare collection of books of diverse disciplines. So it has also great library, and it had also a public bath and hospital. And it's very interesting that the Mustansir, as a caliph, always visited almost every day, and he built a very great tower wherein from which he can see the activity of teaching in the whole madrasa. It's very interesting, and it's also interesting because the fact that Caliph himself, visited the madrasa almost every day, maybe 1 2 hours, showing to us its interest in science development. Okay, so the second one of the educational institutions called academy. The academy is a non-formal institution that has various purpose. The first one, called Baitul Hikmah in Baghdad, is previously initiated by Harun al-Rashid, the Caliph, but is developed greatly by Al-Ma'mun, the Caliph Al-Ma'mun. This is his son, actually. Al-Ma'mun gave a full-fledged sports for its development. So you can see how the ruler at that time give the sports and patronage, of course. It became the instrument for the translation of ancient works, Greek, Persian, and Hindu into Arabic. So Baitul Hikmah was basically the translation institution. And it was said that Al-Ma'mun picked certain works to be translated into Arabic. And he put it very systematically. So, Al-Ma'mun has a very great interest in science and knowledge. Al-Ma'mun spent a great sum of money to obtain manuscripts. So he actually funded for the searching of manuscripts, that he sent also some scholars, the able scholars, to different countries, especially to Constantinople, to search for manuscript of philosophy, science, mathematics, and so on. So Al-Ma'mun, has contributed a great deal to the development of science. He employed a great translators such as Hunayn bin Ishaq, Salim Sahal, and Sa'id bin Harun. So he really was interested in translation activities, and he recruits and selected the very vast translator such as Hunayn bin Ishaq, which is very well known, is a Christian from Nestorian, and also Muslims like Salim Sa'id and Sahal. And it was said that Al-Ma'mun very generously give the, like salary for the translator. So he will give gold as the same amount of the weight of the works. Okay. If you are talking about the building of the Baitul Hikmah was an underground building actually. And the time it was a very good place. If you build an underground building for housing books, it's very, ideal because it's really cooler. Nearby his palace. It was very organized activities, cover so far-reaching scopes and intensity never done before. Ma'mun has given really great spirits toward this translation activity. So Al-Ma'mun was the agent of translation at the time. Okay, and now we go to the Darul Hikmah. If Baghdad named its academy as the Baitul Hikmah, Fatimid dynasty called his academy as the Darul Hikmah. So Baitul is actually the same house, meaning house of wisdom. But just to differentiate, so they call it Darul Hikmah. It was used by the Fatimid Shiite dynasty to propagate its ideology, which is Shiism, and use the Darul Hikmah as the means of like inviting people to the government and to their ideology. It actually houses about 600,000 volumes out of 100,000 titles, and including 200 or 2,400 mushaf of the Quran. This is decorated very beautifully. But when the Salahuddin al-Ayyubi take over the library, it houses about 1.2 million books. So you can imagine, one institution housing so many books. Okay. And it was equipped with carpets on its floor and walls. It provided papers, pens, and ink for anyone who wanted to study there. And it had assistants and give salary for scholars who wanted to seriously study there. So, it's very generous. If you are scholars, you can just go to the academy, and to be given salary and also ink and many other instruments for studying. Okay, now we move to library. Library has play important role in distributing and preserving scientific resources in the Islamic world. Muslims, especially the ruler and the rich, were very much interested in knowledge to the point that they built many libraries. Of course, Baitul Hikmah and also Darul Hikmah has a very great library in there. In Baitul Hikmah, we are told it houses about 400,000 books. And he just mentioned that Darul Hikmah also houses about 600,000 books. Okay, so at that time, the Islamic world was the greatest numbers of library in the world, as mentioned by Toby Huff in the book The Rise of Early Modern Science. Okay, now we just mentioned two libraries other than the Darul Hikmah and Baitul Hikmah, which is library in Shiraz. Shiraz is in Iran. It was built by Adu Dawla, died in 983. So just for information, under the Abbasid Caliphate, there was actually the one who actually ruled de facto, under the Abbasid Caliphate, which is Buwayhiya ruler. One of them was Adu Dawla. Adu Dawla was a Shiite by inclination, but he was the ruler, the actual ruler. So he built a library, a great library, which is the building complex surrounded by parks, lakes, and running water. This is two-story underground building having great dome for research and 360 chambers illustrating the scientific disciplines at the time. 360 chambers. If you imagine one chamber has 1,000 books, so it means 360,000 books, maybe more, only in one library. And compared to the collections of Chinese dynasty, for many dynasty only housing 10,000, and in Vatican, according to Toby Huff, housing only 3,000 books. So compared to US and China, Islam was the greatest, has the greatest library in number and quality. And it says that in every division there was racked with the rich catalogs. The building was designed to get fresh air through ventilation system, by hanging carpets wherein the air flow, and the carpet will swing to make effect to the reader there. Okay, that was a library in Shiraz, and I'm moving to library in Cordova, Cordova Mosque. So at the time, not only palace that has or had a library, but also mosque. Great Mosque of Cordova has a library. It was built by Al-Hakam, which is Umayyad Caliphate that was resided in Andalusia, Spain at the time. He reigned from 961 to 977. The library was taken care by a Samin, the protector. by the name of Bakia. The copyists and translators were employed there and provide books for the library in every province by way of buying or copying. So Al-Hakam, appointed agent in every province to search for new books to come, either by copying or by buying the books for the collections of the library in Cordova. Ibn Hazm say that the library has catalogs of names and title of the books, numbered 44 bundles, each of which has 20 pages, 20 times 44, so like 88 pages of catalogs. Okay, so that is the library that I can convey to you. Now we move to observatory. Observatory was a very important instrument for the developing astronomy and also the sciences related to that. I mean, physics and mathematics. In Islamic scientific tradition, astronomy belongs to mathematical science. So, if you build astronomy, so you have to have also mathematician and also physicist. Okay, actually, the Muslim world had many observatories from the 800. It was Ahmad al-Nahawandi conducted observation in Yundisapur in Persia, and then Abbas bin Firnas in Cordova at the minarets in Seville, Ibn Yunus in Egypt at Hill Muqattam nearby Cairo, an observatory for Al-Farghani built by the Ma'mun in Baghdad, an observatory built by Malik Saf for Umar Khayyam. But from until that time, the observatory is for individual, not so much for the public institution. I will mention only one observatory out of hundreds, many, just to give you the idea of what this observatory looked like in the time. Madrasah was actually at the time was the capital city of Ilkhan dynasty, Ilkhaniya dynasty. As I mentioned last week, that after sacking Baghdad, Hulagu Khan, 1 year after that, Hulagu Khan make the Madrasah as the capital city of his own dynasty called Ilkhaniya dynasty. And he ordered Nasiruddin Tusi, the Muslim, very well-known Muslim astronomer, and also philosopher Nasiruddin Tusi, to build an observatory in Madrasah. So he headed that observatory, and but he built the observatory in such a way that it's transformed from the individual concern into the public institution, meaning housing so many employing many other scientists and scholars in that. Tobihav, in his book, The Rise of Early Modern Science, said that it represented new peaks in science and astronomy in Islam and in the world at large. It was built with very high precision to make more certain observation, and very much refined the previous called the astronomical table. So Nasiruddin Tusi and his 100 disciple students, including Qutbuddin Sirazi, to refine the astronomical tables, so-called Giza. Okay, it had a number of great astronomers as its staff, and also instruments makers and mathematicians. It had a library housing 400,000 volumes and astronomical instruments such as terrestrial and celestial globes, great almiraries, and climate maps. Okay. One of the scholars who served there are Najmuddin Qazwini, or Dabiran, is a very well-known philosopher and scientist, Muayyad Urdi, and the library Ibn al-Fuati, also a historian who reports the situation in Maraga Observatory. And one of the Nasiruddin Tusi's well-known murids, the students, was Qutbuddin Sirazi, who died in 1311. He is well known as the author of Nihayatul Idrak in astronomy, but he also mastered in medicine, and he make a kind of what's that? Sharah, commentary on the Al-Isharat wa Tatbihat, and also Kitab Tasrih, the Qanun Atib of Ibn Sina. Okay, and of course, there's another one, another observatory built by Ulugh Beg. Ulugh Beg is the accomplished astronomer, but also at the same time the ruler, who reigned in 15th century in Samarkand. And he built a very great observatory, which is, you can see now the remnants of that, very big and very well known. And he had a very well-known astronomer also by the name of Al-Kushti, who make a study on it's called Mercury, planet Mercury. Okay, so Muslim world actually has many hundreds of observatorium that exerted the great influence on the development of astronomy in the West. And of course we knew also Ibn Haytham, the author of Al-Manazil, the optics of Ibn Haytham, that exerted very great influence to Western scholars such as Roger Bacon, Vitello, and Kepler. Okay, another one is actually a hospital. Hospital was the place where actually medicine was studied, and the role of hospital Bimarisman was great because, of course, the concerns of the ruler for the health purpose. So it was reported that Harun al-Rashid built a very great hospitals in Baghdad, modeled after hospital in Judicial Safar, the Persian one. And he appointed Bakhtisu, a Zoroastrian converted to Islam, as the first director of the hospital. And then he also appointed Abu Bakr al-Razi, which is the great Muslim physician, the author of Al-Hawi and Atib al-Ruhani, as the director of the hospital in Baghdad. And actually, we have so many hospitals in the Islamic world. In Syria, we have the An-Nuri, in which people like Ibn Nafis works in the library. Ibn Nafis was a very well-known physician, doctors who wrote a book called As-Samil fi Sina'at al-Tibiyya. It's 80 volumes. And here's the one who actually founded the system of blood circulation, claimed by the West, founded by William Harvey, but actually 3 centuries before Ibn Nafis already found that system of circulation, blood circulation. An-Nuri become model for the hospitals in the West, as we are told. It has many. It's built very ideally. Outside it was there is a pool and also gardens and so on. And also the building has a very great sanitation and so on, and employs so many doctors in different divisions. Okay, so and another one is actually called Zawiya. Zawiya is a Sufi what's called the Sufi center, actually. Zawiya or Khaniko in Persian. This Zawiya become important after the sects of Baghdad because many madrasas were closed. And so Zawiya has taken over the role of madrasa in developing religious sciences and literature. So that is for tonight. We are talking about the educational institution, both formal and non-formal, and the role that they play in developing, especially religious sciences. And for the non-formal, it is actually the institution wherein many Muslim scholars study non-religious science, such as mathematics, astronomy, medicine, and so on. So, Brother Sarah, this is the end of my lecture today. If you have a question, then we can discuss.
Thank you so much, Prof. You have explained all that 5 or 6 institutions, start from Madrasah, Darul Hikmah, Baitul Hikmah, Library, Observatory, and Hospital, Alhamdulillah. And we still see this remnant when we go to Iran. I think to a few places they are still there, mashallah. So I think our chat box is not functioning because we have a long day seminar. Oh yeah, I can see. Brother Nuruddin have the first question. Alhamdulillah, is working. Prof, you explained that the intellectual tradition of Islam continued even after Mongol attacks. My question is, what causes this tradition to weaken in the current era? Do factors of colonialism and secularization contribute to the weakening of the Islamic intellectual tradition? Okay, Prof.
Okay. Actually, maybe weakening, yes, but not the declines of the scientific enterprises, because after the Abbasid Caliphate was abolished, we had 3 great what's called empires. Actually, Usmani, built from 1300, to like 1924, right? 8 centuries, and we have also Safavid, from I think 16th century to 19th century, even until now, until Qajar, which is 19th century, and also Mughal. From India, we have and it's interesting to mention that actually Mughal was built by Babur, which is the grandson of Timur Lenk, and Timur Lenk was actually grandson of Hulagu, you know, but converted into Islam. And I just read the book called The World of Islam. Uh, there's a study on the science development in Mughal period. This is, I think, from 17th century to 19th century. There's a vibrating development of science. You cannot imagine building Taj Mahal with a very beautiful and symmetry without knowing mathematics and physics and so on. No, it cannot be. And we know that actually books by Nasiruddin Tusi al-Biruni was studied and developed in subcontinent, words actually, and only that we don't have that study yet. There was a study, development, of course, in Safavid. We more knowledgeable about that because Mullah Sadra there, Baba Afdal there, Pinduriski there, Jalaluddin Ad-Dawani, but we don't study that, so we cannot see the development of science after the Mongolian invasion. Actually, there was. I believe Osmani cannot be such a great empire in the time and subjugating Europe to the Vienna, without the technology and sciences. But the lack of study on them make us think that there's a decline in Islamic science after the Mongolian invasion. But of course, after the invasion, after the colonialization from the, I think, 16th century, where Western people, invade colonize Muslim countries, and they are not given chance for studying. And there's a systematic, I think, intentional purpose, not to mention the contribution of Muslim in science and development. And they want to, created the impression that science was developed from the West, which is not true. Actually, Western world was developing science after the translation of Islamic words into Latin and Hebrew in the 12th century. But there's a Islamic contribution. And after the colonization, Muslim was, in weak position. They don't really, it's sometimes being the colonized people, they are, they're very allergic to Western sciences and so on until the Reformation developed by actually, I don't see the decline after the Mongolian invasion in Muslim world, because until 18th century, Muslim world was actually dominated the world, as Marshall Hudson said. But it was for us to study the development of science philosophy after the invasion of Mongol. Okay, that is my answer to that. there any
Okay,
other
Prof.
questions?
From Kak Bibi, how do we revive the culture of the tradition of our past scholars who were not only learned but intellectually so productive, produce 400 books? How can we revive this kind of discipline, this kind of culture?
Okay, so the purpose of my course now is actually to revive the Islamic scientific tradition by knowing the that right. So we just now talking about the support factor of development and institution, and we'll talk about the educational system next week, and then the scientific activities is very rich actually. So I have to divide it into two sessions of this, and then we can see from that, how they make that great achievement in that time, what they do, what they did actually, and how they write a book and so on. So our purpose, the purpose of our lecture now is actually to recognize and to know very well what the secrets of their success, and also both individually and also institutionally, right? So be patient. We will go. Then after I presented to you the key secrets of their success, and it's up to us whether to follow these steps or just go back to your habits, which is not very active actually.
Yeah. Thank you so much,
Yeah.
Prof.
So just,
Yeah.
okay, no problem.
Okay. I always argue with friends that our brain is actually the same capacities as our scholars in the past. It doesn't mean that we are inferior in terms of inventing, in terms of creativity. So our
Yeah,
scholars in the past,
yeah. I just mentioned, for example, whether the uh, current scholars, Muslim scholars, can write volumes of books, and I just did. I just wrote my autobiography, which is actually 6 volumes, right? So if you really wanted to and make efforts and maximally use your capacity, then you can write voluminous books. Actually. So it's not just the what's called the special gift from medieval people. Actually, we can also. So this is what I wanted to, that we learn the secrets of their success, and then we will try to emulate. So we might have because the capacity that God has given us actually the same, right? But we don't use that into maximum capacity. Like if, for example, Albert Einstein just used 10% of his capacity. So how about us? We just 1%. Right? So yeah. So learn both the Islamic scientific tradition and the Western scientific tradition, and we can see how they succeeded in making good achievement in science and.
I think the needs of the time also make us force us to respond. Like nowadays, the issue of Islamic banking, the issue of halal, and we have seen scholars coming up providing solution on these challenges.
Yeah.
What are the areas, Prof? You think that we have to focus based on the need of the
Well,
ummah today?
one day I tried to calculate how many branches in Islamic science. It's actually 40 branches.
Oh.
Have, how about astronomy? How many people study astronomy? No, this area was, in those days. That's why we are interested. We should, study uh, the creativity, the process of the creativity, by looking at the works and how they did it. So this is in the uh, coming section, we'll discuss about that. Why it is Muhammad bin Jabir al-Tabari so well known to the West and to the world, because he worked so hard. It was we are told that he wrote about 40 pages a day for 40 years. How many pages we we do in one day? Sometimes none, right? So how can we get famous or contribute something if we don't even write one page a day, right? Yeah.
Okay, Prof.
Yeah.
There's an interesting question from Prof. Fatah Santoso. When I visited Taj Mahal, I heard that the key person who built it were killed because the king did not want another building being similar to Taj Mahal. He hoped there was no competitor of Taj Mahal. Is this story right?
No, I don't think so. The Taj Mahal was built for 20 years, and it's involved 200, I think 200 workers there in different fields. Actually, the Shah Jahan wanted to have another building for his grave, and the color is a black, what's called marble. The other one is white one, and the second one it will be black. So there's a thought of having the similar one. So it's not. But after he passed away, his sons was quarrel for power, so they neglected, and even they kill, I think, the brothers and so on. No, no, I think I don't believe that. I read about the Mughal in India. I didn't find it that kind of story. Okay, so
This one of just a popular stories. I read it before that. Okay, Prof. This is a good one from Dr. Faisal, our friend from Al-Azhar. What is your opinion on commodification of knowledge in education in Muslim world? Do we have examples from early Muslim in commodification of knowledge, selling knowledge? That's what I mean. Commodification, commercialized knowledge.
Commercialized?
I think that's what Brother Faisal mean by commodification.
Okay. See, in the time, people just love science. People like Ibn Sina was born as the rich, because his father is governor of Bukhara in the time. But he was interested in science since early, and I think he studied jurisprudence in 8th, and by 10 he memorized all the Quran, and then he studied mathematics in 11 with the grocery, and he studied Indian mathematics, and then his father invited the tutor, but then the tutor by name of Natili couldn't answer even Sina questions. And so the teacher said, just I'll let you, answer this, So they don't think about the commercialization of knowledge. And of course, the support from the royals and also the rich is enough for them to, to develop science. Yeah, so like Banu Musa was the supporting the science by sending many people for searching for manuscripts and the translation program, and it's conducted by the Banu Musa, the sons of Musa, and also caliphs. And caliphs will be proud if they housing the scholars like Al-Kindi, Al Farabi, and so. In the times, scientists and science was so greatly appreciated by rich, by the ruler, and by people. So, but also we have the bookstores actually. Like Ibn Nadim, which is the author of Al-Firis, was actually a book agency. So he wrote some notes from books that come to him, and he developed into very good books on the catalogs of sciences in the time. Some bookstore also has the housing like inn, where people can spend the night there, and they have a library, so they don't have to buy books. They just spend some time there and do research because they have a bookstores, and also the bookstore employed the copyists and give salary regularly, something like that. So there's commercialization in that sense. And people like Al-Jahiz, I think he used to spend the nights in the inn when he write a book. So he don't have to buy books, but he can use books as he will, and he can prolong the stay until they finish. Which is very good idea actually. Now if you have the bookstore like that, and also the second story of the bookstore sometimes was used for the debates between theologians and the philosophers and Sufis, conducted in that, and many people come to them. So this is the life of the intellectual life in the Islamic world at that time. Very vibrant.
Thank you so much, Prof. Um, there are many more that we can discuss about how the transition from our golden era to those dark era in the Muslim world, and now the needs. Alhamdulillah. I think we are now coming back because we have the facilities and we have the needs. Like, of course, like the vaccine nowadays, we are racing to get the right vaccine. But inshallah, I think the Muslim world can come up with another product, like Turkey is now trying. Maybe Indonesian scientists, Malaysian also, maybe. I'm not sure we can come up with.
We are trying, actually. We are trying. But we have to have conducted what's called trial or something.
Trial,
to make sure that it can work very well. But this challenge was answered in many places. Maybe sometimes we need talents like this to be creative.
I think in terms of halal, they now have a device that can detect the pig DNA in just a few seconds or few minutes. They can detect the DNA if you are not sure. They have the device now.
Yeah, now we are in the very fortunate times actually, in which all information available very easily compared to those times. But the factor is a human factors actually. We are not used to work hard like that, and we don't love knowledge as they did, because they are not paid, but they really I remember one scholars in Iran, I think. He didn't have any light, but he read in the moonlight, but he still wrote many books, and nobody paid. And when the government, Qajar government, pay him, he said, no, I don't need this. Just give to other people who need it. And he just slapped in the very, very thin layer, on the ground. But the love of knowledge that make him. This love for knowledge now just disappearing because people are not really, the people don't really appreciate knowledge now, right? They appreciate more position, right, rather than knowledge. And those things, people appreciate. The king will be proud if they house it scholars like Ibn Sina, Al-Biruni, and so on, Mutanabi, But nowadays, scientists and poets, they are not interesting.
Prof, one challenge that we are trying to help our PhD student or master student is to choose a topic, Prof. Because we always advise them to choose a topic that we are having problem with in the Ummah. Not a topic is very remote, very specialized. Sometimes we don't know how to use that thesis. What's your comment, bro?
No, I hope that my lecture will give them inspiration. You don't know actually how extend the knowledge. If you just consider, that even Sina books on the 2 volume this thick, and this is just one of 23 disciplines that he mastered. And it's not simple one. It's not simple one. It's all already translated into English. I think I yeah, this books is like this. It's just one of them, right? It's very big. And it's all on physics. So you say that, oh, nowadays you cannot master many disciplines because they're too big. No. Even Sina wrote a book, 6,300 pages, Ashifa, only one of the 220 books that he wrote. And there's the thick one called, what's called Al-Insaf. He wrote about 28,000 pages within 6 months. Can you imagine? And he resolved 20,000 philosophical problems. And he just, age, I think 57 or 55, not that long. But he already produced so many, because when he studied again, after he have a primarily study Greek sciences, he used 1.5 years. But in that time, he almost never sleep in the night and never sway, his attention to others. So that intense, 1.5 years for him is like 20 years for us. The capacity, the love for knowledge that make him possible.
Thank
Where is
you.
our love? That is. So I hope that our discussion will give our students the inspiration of studying it. And it is strong to say that studying the medieval Islamic works is out of date. No, just remember William Chittick was born in the West, educated in the West, but he studied mostly medieval Sufi works, right? Especially Ibn Arabi. Hey, and he get famous of this, and he never give up after 40 years. Because when I met him in Konya, when I visited Sadruddin Konya with whom, I asked him whether he knew Ibn Arabi from early. He said yes. I think he said in the 1970s, I think he visited Ibn Arabi grave in Damascus, and from that time on until now, he was interested in that. And when you read his work, it is very relevant to today's. Why? Because our scholars ideas are so great, and it is far-reaching. You know, for example, if you read Al-Ghazali, it's still relevant, right? But you know, sometimes we think like only Western that is very developed, and you're interested in that, but you ignore Muslim works. This is called perennial philosophy. It's never ends, you know, because it's deal with the ethics, with the morality, and morality is all there. As long as human being live, you know, so the ethical problem will be there. I read a book called Al-Akhlaq Wasiyar by Ibn Hazm of Andalus. He said that in that time when he lived, there are so many people who are arrogant and munafiq, you know, hypocrite. And this arrogant hypocrite is still there, here. So the solution, the ethical solution that he gave is still relevant to us. So I hope that by giving this lecture and give them the idea about how the scientific tradition develops in the Muslim world, they will get idea, and maybe the professor also should encourage them to deal with that. So that's the significance of our study now. Our
Thank you, Prof. We'll see you next week, Prof. Inshallah.
Inshallah.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. We can stay online. Prof. Rosnani will join us in